Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon, and with me tonight is Representative.
Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes Terry. Terry, how you doing today?
I'm well, thanks. I'm glad to be here. I'm not sure what happened to JP, but I'm happy to fill in.
Well, as always, JP is out on a secret mission. He's battling commies. He's throwing them back into Massachusetts as we speak. So
undercover, I'm sure.
And tonight's guest is Representative Jim Creighton.
Thank you, Joshua.
Hi, Jim. How you doing?
Awesome. Glad to be here.
We're getting down to the wire now, aren't we?
Yep.
So both of you are up, right?
Up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Both of you. Yep. So how's the campaign going?
I knocked on about 1,500 doors.
1,500 doors.
Talking to tons of people, and so far pretty positive reaction.
I can't do it. I'm not a people person.
You getting some calluses on your knuckles, or are you using the rings?
Yeah, no, you're getting calluses on the knuckles. Absolutely, exactly.
So you represent what towns do you represent?
So Hillsborough District 30.
Okay.
Bennington, Antrim, Hillsborough, and Windsor.
Okay, good. And so there's three of you running over there. Well, there's
three seats.
There's three
six
seats.
people running.
6 people running.
And we'll hope the right three get in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any guesses?
Is it that close?
I'm sort of like it's going to be close. The Democrats have a good candidate running.
Yeah.
And she's got some experience, and she's got a following in Hillsborough. And so we have to work hard.
Yeah.
We have to go out and talk to people and get the message across. I think that people are willing to listen in most cases. Mm-hmm. And if you lay out whatever the issue is, education, abortion, taxes, all those things, if you lay out a logical thought process, they'll listen to you.
Yeah. I think the tide is turning on that. I mean, I've been talking on the show for years about the attitude in politics over the last 10 or 20 years, right? I mean, I've highlighted, Reagan and Speaker of the House Reagan under Reagan.
Tip O'Neill.
Reagan and Tip O'Neill had a great relationship, right? It was a time when you could have a great relationship, you could have a civil relationship in politics and still do what's best for the country as a whole.
Yeah. And they would battle and on the floor of the House or wherever. They would exchange the words.
Yes, they would.
But at closing time, whiskey.
Right. It wasn't a personal issue. But over the last 20 years in all races, national and local, it's become a personal issue. We've been forced to be divided. The media is trying to divide us, but I think it's coming back.
If you look at New Hampshire,
I think the idea of conservatives, reasonable discussion, open-minded discussion, I think that's coming back. I think folks are starting to realize that we aren't the evil people that we've been made out to be over the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that.
So I agree. People are more willing to have an open discussion without punching you in the face nowadays.
Yeah.
So I was talking to an independent at Bennington Dump. That's my favorite place to hang out.
It's funny how landfills seem to be the political hotspot.
Yeah. And he says he's an independent, and he's worried about exactly what you talk about, the divisiveness and not being able to talk. But Terry and I, in the first 30 seconds of every session, the speaker says, everyone in favor of bills on consent. And everyone says aye. Everyone opposed? Crickets. Nothing. That's 70% of the bills on any given day.
Yeah. That means all the differences have been worked out in committee. Everybody understands.
And that's another thing that's been happening lately in this last 2-year term, is that it's been much better to get the negotiations before those floor votes have been better and more productive than they have been in previous years, previous sessions.
Yeah, because it's so close, there's no room for antics. So
Right.
when one side's got higher than the other, and it's more so the Democrats that will pull this, they'll pull stunts, they'll ask questions that are inappropriate, you know what I mean? They'll ask loaded questions, they'll attack witnesses. Well, it's so close now, they need Republicans if they want something, because just like us, they have factions within their party. So they've been really much better this term, I got to say, and I think that's why.
So then you have 30% of the board votes that come to the floor. Of those, of that 30%, 20%, left side will get up and say this, right side will get up and say that. We vote and off we go. And it's pretty cordial and it's reasonable and people are trying to get their point across and then people make their assessment and vote. And sometimes it's very close and sometimes it's not very close. I would say, and Terry backed me up on this, that about 10% of the bills are contentious and sort of crazy.
If that.
If that.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. If you think about 90% of our business is done either on consent, where everyone agrees, or that 20% where it's a reasonable discussion between adults. That's 90% of the work we do.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
That's
I
good.
think that's a pretty good.
And don't forget, I would say that probably before you get to that 90%, you bring it back to 100, and 100% of those, more than half are killed before they ever get to the House floor. That we agree this is garbage, we don't need this. So it comes to the House floor as this is a no-go, no-go, no-go. So the bills we agree on to pass are what he's speaking about, but we agree to kill quite a few of them. So
And that's good too. It's another point that I've made consistently is I don't want more regulation.
Yeah.
I don't want my representatives to go in there and then just start filing bills just to make waves and make their mark and on history and whatnot. I would prefer, if it had to be, I would prefer complete deadlock and nothing gets passed. Right? As long as nothing bad gets passed. So it's good to hear that a lot of garbage just gets thrown out the door immediately.
yeah.
It's frustrating. Last year, if you look at holdover bills and all the bills, Senate bills, all we looked at about 1,400 bills last year,
Yep.
which in my mind is way over the top.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous for a state like ours.
That's
So
been here over
yeah.
200 years. I think we know what
Yeah,
we
exactly.
So, but the question is, how do you regulate that? You know, do you get fined if you have a stupid bill? Well, who's to define what a stupid bill is?
Exactly.
Do you tell a representative, no, you can't put in a bill for your constituent,
Yeah.
and then let the House decide whether that is reasonable or not? To me, I would want to tell my constituent, yeah, I'll help you out.
Yeah.
Let's see what the people say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's part of that 1,400. And like Terry said, a lot of those, they get killed, and we agree that it doesn't make sense. It's not
A change
ready
I
for
would like to
prime
see
time.
is to be able to kill them in committee.
Yeah.
So could we spend a lot of time in the House? We wouldn't have to be in session nearly as much at all if we could kill bills in committee. So I'm in criminal justice. If I get a bill that comes and the Democrats and the Republicans agree this is crazy, we should be able to kill it right there
Without letting it.
without it further getting killed again. Because remember, everything we do is a double vote. So we pass a bill in committee, it's got to get passed on the House floor.
By law.
We kill a bill in committee, it's got to get killed on the House floor. It's a duplicative effort. So if we trust these committees and we put experts on them and they say this is bad, that should be enough in my mind. It makes the people work harder to
Well,
convince
then the
committee.
argument is if the committee says it's good, well, then that should be enough, right?
Well,
but
agreed.
That it goes both ways there, right?
Yeah, you would have to say that the benefit of a good bill being probed further is better than the benefit of a bad bill tying up, I think. I mean, you got to weigh it somehow.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
But, then there's the other side of it is, we do have a large legislature. We talked about that last week. And so you've got a committee of, 20 people?
25 on
10
mine.
and 20, yeah, whatever.
24.
And so you got a committee of 20 to 30 people, but you've got a full house of over 400,
Yeah.
and you've got a whole bunch of representatives over here are waiting for that bill to come out of committee. That I want to vote on that. I want to debate on that. I want to make my voice heard on the floor, and so that may be. That's part of it,
it's
right?
an
That
argument
is
to
part of it.
consider, yeah.
If
That is part of
you
it.
kill it in a committee, then there's the rest of the reps from other parts of the state don't get their say.
Well,
Right.
if
I mean,
it's that-
they can get their say if they go to the committee
Yeah.
and testify in committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
So.
I think a lot of states do it that way. I believe the federal government, you can kill a bill in committee in the federal, and they're a big legislative.
Oh, bills get killed
Yeah.
before they
If we
even go
keep
anywhere
having
near the
these
floor.
numbers what's going to happen is you're going to have more.
Well, who makes those rules? It's the party that's in power at the beginning of the session, right? Or
yeah, they can change the rules
Yeah.
by the majority vote. But I mean, if we keep getting so many bills, we're going to either have, you're going to see, and we've seen it, a bigger push. We need to get paid. We're here too much. We're here too much. We don't
yeah,
want that.
we absolutely don't want that.
So I would
that's
rather,
a non-starter.
I would rather see us say, okay, we're going to put more emphasis on the committees. We're going to maybe make the hearings be longer, something to make sure that people have a chance. No rushed hearings. It's got to be open to the public, this and that. But at least you're not doing that twice, and because you are. But we're there. I mean, as a chair, I'm there 4 or 5 days a week, and same $100.
So 2 terms ago, one person could say, listen, I know the committee voted 20-0 in favor of this action, but I want to pull it off consent.
Yeah.
That was one person could do that. And that, to Terry's point about taking time, we took a lot of time just because one person wanted to get up and talk about it.
Yeah.
Even though the entire committee had said, no, this is the way we're going. So we did change the rules last time. So 10 people had to sign up. You had to get 10 people to say, okay, we need to take this off a committee.
But
Yeah,
so
I mean,
those rules
that's
can
That
change.
got hijacked too, though. They
It
said
did.
that you had a bunch of group of people at the beginning said, okay, you put me down for anything because I don't like this rule. So you had a baked in 10 people.
It
no matter
was,
what.
yeah.
So they didn't put thought.
It was a
into
good, yeah.
Good idea, but
It was a good idea, but it was hard to execute.
yeah.
All right. So, so we've got big stuff coming up this week at the national level.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how you feel about things.
In New Hampshire,
Well, let's talk about New Hampshire's races. Let's start there. Let's start local. Let's talk about the governor's race. Let's talk about the executive committee. How are we looking?
so I'm all in for Kelly, and I think Kelly is going to be very tight, but I think she's a quality candidate that can make it.
Do you think she has better name recognition than?
Yeah,
than
she's been
Craig?
involved. Yeah, absolutely. Craig's name recognition, as far as I'm concerned, is tied to homelessness and drugs. That's what people know that name for. And like it or leave it, anytime for the last 6 years her name came up, other than this election, it was the homeless problem in Manchester, the drug problems in Manchester. So that's not the kind of name recognition you want. Kelly's got Congress. I mean, she's not without her scars from things that she's said or done in the past, but nothing compared to Craig. So I think that she's out of the gate. If you're just going by that, Kelly's got the lead, I think. And then you've got the drive, I think, from the Republicans coming out for the top of the ticket, Trump, who are hopefully going to just go right down the ballot. There's an effect there too. Unless you really despise a person, you want to go the other way.
Yeah.
So,
It's
Well,
interesting that I think New Hampshire right now is within the margin of error for Trump, which is
yeah.
a huge surge in the last month, where he was way behind a month ago, but it seems like he's got a surge coming. So fingers crossed on that one. We'll see who shows up at the polls.
Do you trust those polls, though?
Never.
Me neither. I look at
Especially
them.
with Trump.
Yeah.
Trump has defied the polls so many times that it's just sort of an indicator, but I don't
trust Polymarket, the gambling site. That's what I
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Because they have Trump at 67% today. And you look, there's almost $1 billion been voted that Trump's going to win.
Well, there's also they know that there are
Wales.
4 accounts
Yeah.
that are, as you said, whales. There's 4 accounts that are responsible for $28 million worth of bets
Yeah.
on Trump.
Yeah.
Right. So now you've essentially, and the 4 accounts are controlled by the same entity. So it's either one person or one company or one family has 4 accounts.
Wow.
And so this one entity, we'll call it, has bet over $28 million on the market
really.
for Trump to win. And so the question is,
that-
and you have to think about
Yeah.
it, is if you are smart enough, financier, entrepreneur, whatever, that you have enough money, you have so much money that you can throw down $28 million in the betting market. Are you going to throw down $28 million to pump it up just so that you can lose it all?
Yeah, that's
Or are you going to pump down $28 million so that you can double it.
Yeah.
I've heard
Right?
Democrats
Like,
say
so,
that
so,
it's
so
fake.
how is it real or is it not? Right?
I think it is real. I think
Because like I said, if you were smart enough to earn that much money and you have control over that much money, are you going to be dumb enough to throw it down on a losing bet?
yeah, I don't think
That
so.
much money?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to just try and influence a small group of people, relatively speaking. Most people don't bet, so
Right.
that would be a lot of money to do that. I wouldn't be surprised to find out, though, that those BlackRock owns all those accounts. They seem to be at the top of everything.
It is, we've talked about BlackRock and
Yeah.
conspiracies in the past, so it's
They keep coming
definitely a
true.
possibility. They do keep coming true.
We need some new conspiracy theories.
So,
Speaking of which, have you guys, are either of you on Twitter?
I look at it
X.
once in a while. I don't.
Elon Musk started a group on there, and it's called Voter Integrity Group.
Really?
And what it is it's people from around the country sending in pictures when they see sketchy stuff in their voting areas.
Yeah.
And there's some scary stuff going on out there
There's
right
some
now.
stuff that's happened in Pennsylvania in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
One, folks were waiting in line to vote, and there was a ballot box, and a guy drives up in a van and just dumps hundreds and hundreds of ballots.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, let's take some pictures here.
Yeah.
Really?
Right?
Yeah.
And then this morning, there was another story. It was a 2-hour line, again in Pennsylvania, for voting. And 2 vans full of non-English speaking citizens rolled up. And a translator escorted all of these quote-unquote non-English speaking citizens to the front of the line to
VIP.
vote.
Right.
And they all had Harris Wall stickers on. But here's the problem I have with the term non-speaking citizen.
Yeah.
If I go to the State Department's website and I look up the rules to become a citizen in the United States,
Yeah.
rule number 1, you have to be here legally. Rule number 2, you have to be here legally for 5 years.
Yeah.
Rule number 3, you have to speak and write English.
Yeah. So how'd that happen?
Speaking English is a requirement for becoming a citizen in the United States.
Yeah.
And so for these news organizations to tout the translator for the non-English speaking citizens to go and vote,
That doesn't track.
that doesn't sit well with me because, like I said, anybody can look it up. Speaking English is one of the top rules to becoming
Well,
a
you
citizen.
listed a whole
It doesn't-
bunch of
It
violations.
doesn't change the fact that there are citizens who don't speak English, right?
Yeah.
They do exist. But
course.
to have a couple of van loads of them show up
Cut the line. That's
and
my
cut
biggest
the
thing.
line.
If I waited in
like,
that line,
yeah, and so
I'd be
there's
heated.
people that they're posting pictures and they're just really upset about this.
Yeah.
But to your point, this business of shenanigans, they're already starting.
yeah.
So
they-
I feel pretty comfortable. I was a supervisor of the checklist in Hampshire. Once you get into the polling booth in New Hampshire, I
yeah,
feel
we're
pretty
good.
comfortable.
Yeah, I do
You
too.
know,
In New
it's-
Hampshire,
it's
yes.
pretty tight.
Yeah.
The one thing from our perspective, though, is as you knock on doors, you basically you get the voter checklist from that's currently accurate. That's what you get, and you use that checklist to go knock on doors. And from my perspective, I won't knock on a bright blue door. I won't knock on a bright red door, because my chances of
bank that
convincing them
vote,
one
yeah.
other way
Yeah.
is pretty small, and I have a limited amount of time.
Right.
But as you look at those checklists, you'll go to a house, single-family house. There'll be 4 voters in that house. There'll be 2 separate names, a husband and wife of different names. And so they're both registered at that house currently, because
Yeah.
that's the current registered checklist. So my question is, even if there's only 2 people living at that house, where are these other 2 people?
Yeah,
And who's voting for them?
yeah.
And are they voting?
Are they
Because
different names?
different names.
Yeah, that's odd
It might
because
be
like my son who's 19
previous
at college.
owners have moved someplace
Right,
else.
but they're still on the list.
Right.
Yeah, clean up those rolls.
Or,
Right.
or you go to a place and you say, you know, I'm going down Smith Road, and I'm going to number 75 Smith Road doesn't exist.
Yeah,
So who's registered to vote at a house that doesn't exist?
yeah.
Is that happening? Are you seeing that here in New Hampshire?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's one off.
It's one off. It's not. Oh, it's not prevalent, but it happens.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would say that we maybe have a 0.5% of and, I mean, one is too many in my opinion, but I think we're doing a lot better. I mean, this Attorney General has been after them when we catch them. So we don't have that systemic. I know there was talk about busfuls coming. There was never any evidence of that.
I don't know. If you've seen evidence of it, I'll
if you have some, I'd love to see it.
Ed Nail had it all.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. Right?
Yeah.
Ed Nail was just a hawk on voter fraud in New Hampshire.
I think we need to fix the college kids though, because that doesn't have to be fraud. It's legitimate. We're allowing people that come here for a short period of time to vote on things that are going to last our lifetime, and that's not right.
But yeah, there's
they don't have to pay it,
and then they can drive an hour over to Massachusetts where their parents live and vote again.
Yeah, and they can just. I mean, you and I both, when we were in the military. You have an absentee ballot for your home registered state, and I voted all those times. I remember voting for Bush the first time from Germany. So why is it so hard for these kids to do that? Because they're influencing our politics by voting for taxes, this and that they're not going to be here to pay.
They're leaving.
Yeah, they don't even have a job yet, actually, and we're paying those taxes. So I feel like that's something we need to debate, and I'm happy to debate it and hear both sides of it.
Don't know how you're going to fix that though, because it's an issue for every state, and
some states do it though. You can't vote there if you're a college student.
So that's good. So this is
it's
something
the Supreme
to model.
Court's already looked at it. Yeah.
So speaking of the Supreme Court, they did hand down a decision today for the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia's had a law in the books since 2006 to purge their rolls of non-citizen voters.
That's crazy.
And the governor has been encouraging the purge. And the Biden administration stepped in and sued the state, found themselves a judge friendly to their cause to stop it. And the Supreme Court today said, nope, we're going to purge those rolls.
And right on party lines.
Right.
Too.
So we blocked that last year.
Kagan and Sotomayor, they all dissented.
So last year there was a bill that we looked at that said that illegals could get a driver's license, which is a direct path to registration to vote.
Absolutely.
And we were able to muster the votes and kill that.
It'll be back though, I'm sure.
It'll be back this year. So there are folks in this state that want to open the doors for that to happen here.
Driver's license. What about state IDs? Well, because a state ID would be the same, right?
Let me tell you, I just took my 19-year-old to register just the other day, and all he needed was his driver's license. You're supposed to have a birth certificate or a passport. He didn't have his. They said, "Oh, don't worry, just sign this affidavit," and that was it. He's ready to vote. So great, that's my son. But what about the people that I don't know? Because I know where he came from. I was there, but it seems like we got to tighten that up. It's way too easy. Now, is it happening? Are there a lot? I don't know, because that's a hard data point to be able to cull from all those numbers. How many people are actually doing that aren't supposed to?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to that whole business of if someone who's here illegally, can they get a driver's license? Okay, now their driver's license or any ID.
Yeah, any state issued,
any state issued ID. If they can get an ID, then they can say, "Hey, I'm legal to be here because I have an ID."
Exactly.
And that becomes like you said, the catalyst to the next step.
Yeah.
Now I can go and do these other things. What do you do? What do you do then? Now, what about a Social Security number? If you have a Social Security number,
that opens a whole other set of doors.
Right. Does that mean you're a citizen?
Well, it's my understanding they're giving them to them.
So
the illegals.
But that's the thing. If you've got a Social Security number, well, how are you not a citizen if you don't have a Social Security number?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But my understanding is the way it works now is they kind of play hot potato. They come across the border. If they catch them, if they're not wanted somewhere, they kick them loose and they give them instructions on where to go sign up for benefits. And then they get this work authorization program thing, and as part of that is a Social Security number, I believe, because otherwise how do they pay the tax? So we're really just handing them off, and they're lined up for that amnesty. So They know who they are. They know who to grant it to. So it's so important that Trump wins this thing. Because they have a pipeline of 20 million people ready to be Democrat voters like that.
But there are two sides of it. And the first side is to keep those people out, especially the illegals, the gangs, the criminals, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely seal that off.
Yeah.
But our kids are not having kids.
Yeah, you're right.
And our population is at about 1.7 kids per family.
Mm-hmm.
To have a healthy population, you need about 2.2 kids per family.
Yeah.
So we're
To beat the death
short.
rate. Yeah.
To beat the death rate. So we're short. And the advantage that we have over Japan, China, Europe is we have immigration. People love this country. They're still knocking on the door to come in. So yes, we have to control who comes in. There's no question about that. But we also have to fix the citizenship process so that those people that come in that are good people, and that's not just doctors, lawyers, engineers. That's workers. That's farm workers. That's
But we have a work
whoever it
visa
is.
program that we should be using. If we
Exactly.
want seasonal workers, you get a seasonal worker
Exactly.
visa. And if you do that for 5 years and you've been great and never caused a problem, you should get an easier way to get citizenship. Or if you serve in the
join
military.
the Army.
Yes.
If you join the Army, that should be a streamlined path to citizenship. And we did. I had Mexican, I had Ukrainian, I had Russian soldiers in my units 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Great kids. Worked their tails off.
Yeah.
And they, over years, it didn't start out that way, but over years, that became a sort of a fast track to citizenship,
Yep.
which was earned. It clearly earned.
That goes back to Rome. I mean, that's how you earn citizenship, serving in the military. So,
Serve as a centurion.
yeah, if you either owned property or inherited money or you served in the military, if you weren't a citizen, you didn't vote. Only those people could vote, and that's where that whole franchise system came from.
Well, I think we're the only country in the world that doesn't require voter ID at the
Probably.
national level. No, it's true. Like every other country requires something to make sure that not only are you a citizen, but you only vote once.
Yeah.
I mean, even Iraq painted everybody's finger purple.
I remember that.
In order to make sure that nobody voted twice.
Mm-hmm.
In a small town like Antrim,
Easy.
you know everyone.
Right.
The clerk does know everyone. I've seen her go through the rolls, and she'll tell you the family history, genealogy, when they moved, where they moved. She'll tell you everything. But we voted in New York City, in Manhattan, 1 year. And there is absolutely no way that you can control that. And in my mind, you got to have some sort of proof that you are who you say you are, and that you are a citizen of that town, of that state.
And this is the only vote you've cast.
And
But
that's the only vote you've
the
cast.
argument is that you're disenfranchising the poor people who don't know how to go and get an ID.
Yeah.
That's
their argument.
and that's but that argument itself is racist,
It's foolish.
right?
Yeah.
Because you need an ID for a bank account, you need an ID to buy cigarettes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
If you had to have an
nothing.
ID to buy alcohol, you're going to go figure out how to get an ID.
Right.
I even challenged the Democrat a couple terms ago. I said, listen, let's co-sponsor a bill. Voter ID for everyone to vote. And they're like, well, I said, we, the state, will pay for an ID for anyone that doesn't have one. Never heard from them again. Because that it solves their argument. What does it cost the state? 50 cents to make one of those plastic?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's a fake argument.
How about the Dominion machines?
Yeah.
Do you think we solved that problem? We've got some Dominion machines here in New Hampshire.
I think the machines are fine. I think you got to watch the people that have it. I mean, I just read somewhere a story about some kind of a code was released on a web page.
Secretary of State of Colorado
Exactly.
accidentally posted a spreadsheet
Well,
yesterday or today.
Yeah.
And the
hidden cell.
spreadsheet included passwords to the Dominion voting machines in Colorado.
You could access from the web, right?
But according to Dominion and every other liberal out there and all the mainstream media is that none of these machines are connected to the internet.
Yeah.
So what do they need passwords for?
Exactly.
Why aren't they just counting machines?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we have in our town. It's just a machine that tabulates. It's a
standalone-
tabulator.
It's standalone.
Yeah,
and
no
it prints
fancy-
out a
A ticker.
It looks like a ticker tape or
a receipt.
A receipt from the grocery store.
Yeah, that's all
And
it
it's
should
not
be.
connected to anything other than itself.
Yeah, and when you get fancy on something that should be simple is when you have problems.
Yeah.
We had an early voter in Texas last week who said that he watched the machine change his vote from Trump to Harris.
Yeah, there was a lot of that last time I heard too.
And it's already happening. I mean, so now I just laid out issues in Texas, Colorado, Pennsylvania, and we aren't talking about states that are insignificant in this
It's strange
cycle.
that those seem to be the most that it's coming from too, because you're not really hearing it so much any other states. So it seems those states, for whatever reason, are having all these problems that other states aren't. So that's
Pennsylvania's always been a problem. It's always been a problem for the GOP. I remember, when was it? I believe it was 2008. Yeah, it was definitely 2008, where they had Black Panthers standing outside of the polls.
I remember the pictures of the guys with the guns.
It's essentially intimidating folks. You
Yeah.
come here, you vote for the black man. You don't vote for anybody else. Pennsylvania's always been a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially your Pittsburgh and your Philadelphia, where they're controlled by the Democrats, control it top to bottom in the government. I mean, when we looked at the last election, and you saw, I think it was them, where they just pulled the curtains. You can't look in here anymore. We're closed. But
Yep,
we're
that
gonna
was
stay
in Georgia.
Yeah, okay. That
Yep.
was crazy.
Yep, Georgia is where they stopped counting. They had a water pipe burst, and
Never happened. And that was Atlanta.
Yep.
Yeah, Democrat-controlled city. They threw out the Republican observers. And there was, but it happened in Pennsylvania too, where they stopped counting, and it seemed like they all stopped counting about the same time. And then, so we went to bed, and Trump was ahead, not hugely, but he was ahead. And we got up, and I'm like, what happened?
I thought they different states it turned.
Yeah, and it's coincidentally enough the states that stopped counting. So I mean, there was even if nothing happened, it had what do we used to call that, the appearance of impropriety.
And, speaking of that appearance, I guess the Formula One race this weekend was broadcast on ABC, and during the race, they had a ticker tape come up on the bottom of the screen that said that Harris has won Pennsylvania over Trump.
52 to 48.
Yeah.
They actually called the race.
So ABC has already called Pennsylvania for Harris.
Yeah.
And of course, we had those mistakes last time around too.
Yeah.
So now we're already seeing this.
Yeah. And why would they do that? I mean, what planet would you be in a room together? Okay, even if we like Harris, let's go ahead and pre-do it, and we'll put it in the same system so it could possibly get put on. I mean, what do you think?
How are you not air gapping those two systems?
Yeah.
This is the live feed that's going out. It's a Formula One race.
Yeah.
Right? And this is a test for something over a week from now, supposedly.
Which, oh, by the way,
and
is
somehow
not
we've
predetermined.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow we've accidentally broadcast that.
Yeah.
No. The shenanigans are already starting, and there's enough here for any conspiracy theorist to be very upset so far.
And both sides, which is sad that we're at this state, have announced they've hired thousands of lawyers that they are prepared to dispatch. What are we doing? It makes me sick.
It does.
Thousands of lawyers. I mean, good for the lawyers.
We have had this push for early voting, which I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it at all, because the longer those ballots are sitting out there, the more time there is for shenanigans to happen to those ballots.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say they're all there's some states who are all electronic, right? You go in and you punch your decision into the machine, and the machine counts it, and you're done. There's no paper ballot. There's nothing to count later on. There's nothing to validate those results later on.
Only your word.
And if the machine is set to switching, which we've seen demonstration after demonstration that it does happen, then how do you go back and validate those votes? You don't.
You can't.
You absolutely cannot. Paper ballots have to be the norm here, and they have to be countable, and they have to be accountable, right? We have to have paper that has watermarks on it, and so that they can't be reprinted by some other system.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to have some sort of extended security. We have to change that, and I'm hoping that we get through this, we get Trump in there, we get some solid majorities in some of these swing states, and we get some reasonable people in there to say, okay, let's tighten this up.
Yeah.
For next time around. Let's make sure we get paper ballots. Let's make sure that we get printing with watermarks, et cetera, and all of the other security stuff, so
The
that they
same stuff we
can't be
do to money.
duplicated.
And,
Right.
and this is more important than money, because, you know.
It is. It absolutely
How much
is.
money does that vote, matter?
Well, how much money just got dumped out the window in the last 4 years due to inflation?
Or,
It
or
is
left
more important than
in
money.
the deserts of Iraq. I mean, the
Or
$1 billion.
Iran.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's more valuable than money, and it's a sad state of affairs where we cannot use technology. I mean, if we were decent people, we would be able to use your vote on your phone, but you can't. We can't embrace technology because people are inherently crooked.
And there's always that opportunity for someone to do bad things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's-
So we got this early voting. Like I said, I'm not a fan for multiple reasons.
yeah.
And they're saying that over 50 million people have already voted.
Well,
Now
so-
that's huge,
lot of
because if you
Republicans.
think about the last one, it was 80 million to 80 million, right? Because I remember those numbers because it was like a less than 1% difference, and Biden was touting that he got the most votes ever. No president has ever got that many votes. Well, guess what? Neither have you. But we're at 50 million already. So we're and who knows where we'll be next Tuesday with the early votes. We're going to know half the results already.
Which could be
We
good
should
or-
know half the results already, but that's not going to be disclosed to us until the next morning.
Yeah.
Well, the last election, the Republicans pushed back on that, and I think rightly so. I'm not
Yeah.
a fan of early voting. I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of the mail-in voting. I am a huge fan of absentee voting, which is a different system.
Yeah, you've got to have a reason to be absent.
And-
Your
and there's checks and
sick,
balances
family,
and confirmations.
work, military, right? I mean, there are rules to it.
Correct. But this time, the Republicans has embraced it
Yeah. And
and said, okay, it's a reality. We might not agree with it,
let's
but
use
it's a
it.
reality.
Yeah.
And so now you're seeing, I knocked on a lot of doors in the last 2 weeks where people said, oh, I already voted for you, Jim, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how are they voting? My understanding is that New Hampshire doesn't really have an early voting law. Like the
It must be
rule is it's
absentee.
all
They're throwing their
absentee.
absentee in.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
so
they've got their absentee
so the
ballots and they're
absentee
throwing-
system is essentially being
It's alive and
abused
well.
here, right? I mean, abused.
Well, we don't
or-
know if they're gonna be
they're-
here
It's
to
being
vote.
Well,
used
a lot
as
of
Some people
folks are in
work.
Florida.
Well,
as
they
an
work in
early voting
Boston.
system.
Yeah.
Some people work in Boston, so they just take the absentee because they know they're not going to get back by 7 o'clock, or risk getting caught in traffic in Boston. So there's a lot of legitimate reasons for someone who's still in the state
Exactly.
to use them. But back to the early voting, the only places I think we need to look at is we need to set a threshold of the number of voters and say, okay, early voting should apply, for example, to a district where it's going to be difficult between this hour and that hour to give everybody a chance to vote. But like in my town, you know, a
Yeah,
thousand people.
Dixville
might-
Notch doesn't need early
yeah,
voting.
exactly.
Right?
Right. You know, seven of them.
Exactly. What Manchester may, you know, I
Yeah.
don't, you know, do they have the logistical capability to set up enough polling places so people can get in there and not lose their opportunity? I can see New York. I can see, you know, these giant cities. But New Hampshire is a big stretch. I don't see the necessity at this point, even in our cities, because we've been handling it forever. There was a big push to do paper ballots and hand counting. That's ridiculous.
No.
We'd never get
Yeah.
results. But the paper ballots, I agree with.
I like
want
the
a
paper
record.
ballots. I like a counting machine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if there's any, you know, impropriety at all, then we have a stack of ballots that we can count.
Yep.
All right. Like in my town, I think at my voting station in my town, there are 2 machines, right? And the 2 machines count. They get the little CVS receipt there, and you add them together, and that's your count for that district within. And so we might have, what do we have, 4 or 5 voting stations? So, you know, we have 7 or 8 counting machines
Yeah.
that just need to be added together. But if there's a problem with one machine, well, then we just crack open that machine
The
and we
back
count
open.
those
can
ballots
fix it.
in that machine, and we reconcile that with the slip that came out.
So the other thing that is done is that if you turn in all the ballots, there's 1,000 ballots, and they go into the machine and they're counted. At the end of the night, the supervisors double check, they count everyone that's signed in.
Yeah, reconcile.
And the number of ballots has to equal the number that's signed in.
Well, they hand count.
And the number on the checklist is a hand count.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to double count it. So there's two people that count it, those numbers have to match, and then that number that we agreed to has to match the number of ballots.
I believe
in the
that's how
machine.
it's done. I haven't
That's how we do it.
gone in there and
What do you do
done
if
the
there's a
poll watching, but
discrepancy?
We recount it.
there are absolutely
I mean,
two
it-
people at every book.
Yeah.
And two people take my ID, two
Yep,
people look
that's
at it,
right,
and
that's
then
what we do.
and then they watch each other cross my
Yep,
name out.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, it is like that. In Deerfield, we have a good guy, Dan Holders. If you're watching, shout out Dan. But our elections are really squared away. We have the line you go into according to where you fall in the alphabet.
Yep.
You got to show that ID.
Yep.
From there, you walk and get your ballot. You go over to the booth, and then right next out of the booth is the machine. You put it in there, and there's some lovely lady selling some bakeware, and then you can go to your car. And it's really strict control. The chief of police is always sitting in there having a coffee. It's always just a calm, collected, orderly place where you don't feel like something sketchy is going on here. So I wish that for everybody in New Hampshire. It should be just whether or not your candidate wins, you should be able to just take joy in taking part in this whole thing that we do, because a lot of places it's not. You can go vote and nobody cares. It's going in the trash. I mean, you look at Venezuela and places like this, your votes, Russia, does your vote count? No. Putin's going to be president.
yeah, he just won
He
his
won,
part.
yeah.
Yeah, he just won yesterday.
They used to at least pay lip service, and they'd flip-flop the president and the premier, right? Remember he used to do that
Yeah,
with
but then
McHale?
they're like, what's the point
Yeah,
now?
this is really
Like,
coming old. It's-
everybody knows the game, so we're not even going to bother.
and what's funny is what they accuse Trump of is what they're doing. If Trump wins, he's going to go
Gary
use the
was
government
always
to,
fond of saying that.
Yeah.
If the Democrats ever accuse us of doing anything, they're doing it.
Yeah, look out because they're doing
Because
Well, it's
it's
the whole thing about how the vice president got nominated
Yeah.
without a single vote being cast.
it. Yeah.
Well, Obama cast his vote, and
Yeah.
that was the only vote that was needed.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. But what's interesting is we think about the language. The left co-ops the language a lot. In this whole campaign, it's been drilled into your head. Whether you believe it or not, he's a threat to our democracy. He's a threat to we don't have a democracy. But they keep saying it, and the reason they keep saying it is to get into everybody's head that we have a democracy. We do not, because the next thing is, well, the popular vote. He didn't win the popular vote, so he must be on. It doesn't matter. That's not the kind of government we have. And we teach them in school, we have a representative republic, but once they get out, it's like, oh, democracy.
I'm constantly amazed at the number of times that I have to explain that to folks.
Oh, yeah.
Folks talk about the popular vote. They talk about democracy. And I was actually on Hannity and Combs once.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Before Combs died. And
That's back in the day.
there was a woman sitting in for Combs at the time, and we were talking about eminent domain.
Yeah.
And she came up with this whole, well, if the town wants to take your property away from you, then the town should be able to vote and take your property away from you. and I said, no.
Yeah.
We live in a republic where personal rights are guaranteed.
Yeah.
I said, if we take that, and I had to explain this to this woman who's a Democrat pundit.
Yeah.
For if I said her name, everybody would know it. I can't remember it. But I had to explain. I said, no. I said, if we take that logic, then if the town voted for you to be your next door neighbor's slave, then guess what?
Yeah.
You're a slave for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But in a republic, your personal rights are guaranteed. And you have to say it that way,
You do.
otherwise they don't understand it.
Yeah, what's a republic
You can't have mob rule.
No,
right?
that's exactly the
You-
tyranny of the majority. That was one of our founders, greatest fears.
And I have to explain that. It's like you cannot have the population centers of the United States, which are the Northern California, Silicon Valley area.
It's the coast, basically.
And then you've got Southern California, and then you've got New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Chicago.
Yeah.
I said, if you let those population centers vote by popular vote to
Yeah.
control the country, then a farmer in Nebraska is going to be told what he can and can't have for a harvester.
It will be the Hunger Games. You will be a
Right, like
contributing.
you cannot
Gotta
do
it at
that.
Wall Street.
So that I have to explain
yeah,
that. It's
right.
like you need the Electoral College, you need this representative republic. Otherwise, they're going to tell you what you can and can't drive to work every day.
They're trying a new tactic now that's less offensive, but I think it's equally insidious. And Ellen Reed brings it every year, and it's this. What is that called? That vote that she does that she wants us to embrace. That she said Maine does it. It's
The ranked choice vote.
ranked choice.
Oh,
vote.
Maine
Yeah.
just my
Yeah,
family lives
no,
in Maine,
absolutely
and
not.
they are absolutely appalled at that.
Someone can win that
For
nobody
the
voted
love
for.
of God, guys, make sure that gets killed
Oh.
the
No,
day you
there's-
see
that's
it.
got bipartisan.
It's the
there's-
libertarians
No, you need
like
to
it,
kill that.
and they
We
don't
don't-
understand it
That's got bipartisan support, but it's lost
every time. Yeah.
fairly. I mean, it hasn't been close as I recall.
Yeah, it's
I
never
don't know
been
what the-
close.
Yeah, but
But there's a.
their tactic
It's
is to
not
just keep doing
303.
it.
No,
keep doing it,
it's-
keep
the
doing it.
libertarians are really for it because
Yeah.
they, for some reason, think that's more freedom, and it's
Yeah.
not. It
It's
really
not.
steals your vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you end up your
You've got to
vote
teach
counting
these
for
folks a
somebody you hate.
statistics. It's a math game, is what it
It
is.
is. It's a shell game.
It's
yeah.
a math shell game, and you have to teach them what's wrong with it by showing them the statistics. Hey, your first choice can get thrown out,
Yeah.
and then they can go straight to the third or fourth choice. I mean,
Yeah.
your voice will not be heard.
Yeah. Well, it'll be an election law this year. I encourage you to come and bring some stuff and talk to
Yeah.
them and say, look,
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's coming up again.
Oh,
It's been
I know
there-
it is.
I've been there
It's
4 years.
100%
every
a math game, and it's very easy to show how it just falls apart and becomes a game that the opposition can use against you.
They try this little trick every year where they have ice cream social thing, and they'll be like, "Well, you get to pick your favorite ice cream,"
Yeah.
and they try to make it seem like it's all fun and jolly. I'm like, all this ice cream is communist. It's not. At the end of the day, you get to pick which poison you want to die from. Is all it is, really. It's very dangerous. Maine's
No, we
doing
have
it.
to. We have to watch. Well,
They're falling
they've
apart.
also got. What's her name? Their governor. She's a dingbat anyway.
Oh yeah, she is. Yeah, Maine's gone downhill horribly in the last 20 years.
Hopefully they'll be turning it around. I have
right.
some feelers out in Maine, and folks that I knew as hardcore liberals for decades are like, okay, we're done.
Yeah,
We're done.
Nice experiment.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully they're going to turn it around. Maine and New Hampshire used to be solid swing states.
Yeah.
Right. I remember through the 80s and 90s, it was kind of a crapshoot.
I remember I
right?
voted for Pat Buchanan
Right.
in Mass, but he won up here.
And New Hampshire was solid purple, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this was, you never knew. But for the last couple of decades, we've been solid blue, and I don't understand it. And I'm hoping that we swing back into a real swing
Well, solid
state.
blue at the national level.
Yeah,
At the state level,
we lost once.
we've been pretty.
We've been pretty
tight
good. I
at
mean,
the
we
state
had.
level.
I was in
you
a
know,
minority for my first term, and I won't do it again because that was the most miserable experience of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because you sit there every day watching them pass one horrific bill after another, and if it wasn't for Sununu, we'd be done.
Well, that's the reason why I ran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
is because
Of that,
the
yeah.
governor had vetoed 79 bills.
Yeah, and we upheld
And
just
they
about
upheld
all.
77 of them.
Yeah,
But I was thinking, you're either part of the problem or part of the solution.
yeah, that's
And
right.
That's why I ran, is because
We were that close to we losing all of our gun rights because they had a bill for everything in there. Every wish list, from red flags to magazine capacities, everything.
the interesting thing to that point, though, is that the priorities on TV are different than what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Everyone I talk to is worried about their property tax, and they're afraid of an income tax. They're afraid of a sales tax. So abortion's not it. Education's not it. It's all about how do you reduce the amount of money that's coming out of their pockets.
yeah.
And for example, what we did.
I think that's the older crowd is like that, but I think the younger crowd is falling prey to the propaganda. Like we've got the younger crowd that are, especially on the other side, that are, hardcore into the transgender agenda and the abortion and the Dobbs decision, and they're just at their wits' end. But I think it's
But I
the
think that's
older
your
crowd
limousine
that
liberals.
understands what taxes is and what taxes come out
Yeah.
are in your
Homeowners.
camp.
Homeowners.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you own a home.
If you're on a home, they're worried about
In New Hampshire, they got hammered. I know in my town, my taxes went up $900.
Yeah.
My
It's a
mortgage
big
payment
deal.
did. Excuse
Our
me.
average was $1,200 in Goffstown this
Yeah,
year.
and we got a notice saying, hey, we're sorry we didn't give you guys a lot of notice. This was a surprise on you. So we're giving it to you now. Next year it's going up again. And everybody's like, I can't anymore. And we're seeing
Yeah.
old people
They're
be
moving.
taxed out of their homes.
Yeah.
That they raised their kids in this community. They worked, they slaved, they paid for that home. It's paid off. Finally, time to relax. Now you got to go. 'Cause
And a lot of that money
It's-
is, depending
Schools.
on what town, it's 60 to 80% is schools.
yeah.
Was it you that said you wanted to introduce something to
Yeah.
reduce the school tax on senior citizens?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense, but you've also got to rein in the cost of the schools.
Yeah. Oh, both. I think you got to do both.
For example, why do we have so many SAUs?
Yeah.
You have
Administratives.
SAUs that are completely administrative for 1,500 kids.
Yeah.
The high school I went to was 4,000 kids.
Yeah.
And yet now you have this entire district infrastructure
Uh-huh.
for 1,500 kids. That doesn't make any
That's the
sense.
teachers' unions. They're keeping that money
The
flowing
other,
in there.
the other thing that strikes me is that in the last 10 years, the school budgets in the state have gone up by about $1.3 billion. The number of kids has gone down by 13%.
Yep.
Their performance has continued
To go
plummet.
down. Yeah.
The teachers have been relatively stable, but the administration has gone up by 60%.
Yeah.
So how is it that we're spending our money for the administrative to go up, but we're not
Well,
spending
you
the
got
money
your,
to actually
your
educate the kids?
DEI people being hired by
Yeah,
the
you got to hire the extra DEI people.
Yeah, you have to have so many therapists now. You just all these ridiculous, because if there's a government grant, they'll grab it, but the government grant's a one-time thing, you see. So once you get hooked on that,
And
now the taxpayers
now
are on the hook.
you've developed a structure
Yes.
that requires that money.
And they play on people's heartstrings. Well, are you saying we want to fire these people? I mean, they're part of our community. You're going to put them on the street? Yes.
Yes.
It's a bogus job. Yeah. Sorry. Absolutely.
When the job is obsolete, the job goes and they find something else to do.
Exactly.
Right?
Free market.
Every one of them has a college degree. They can go use it somewhere.
I saw a man who's a billionaire serving fries the other day. And if he can do that, anybody can.
He's got a backup skill.
God, he's a smart man. I mean, that was so gold.
It was good.
Yeah.
Did you see they tried to show that they tried to prove that Kamala
Oh, the Photoshop.
with a photo of her that she worked at McDonald's with a photo of her
From a dead woman.
from a dead white woman.
Yeah. Yeah, they photoshopped her face on.
But you know the campaign can say, oh well, that wasn't us. That was just some random person.
And
Well,
that joke
that's how they do it
about
every
Puerto
single
Rico
time.
was also not Trump, so it plays both ways.
Right.
And I believe, and I've met the man a lot of times. He did not know who the comedian was going to be, nor did they vet. Should they have vetted him better?
Yeah,
Probably.
absolutely.
But I mean, they're putting. Do you know the size of the scope of that event? Madison Square Garden, it blows your mind. You got 25,000 people. You've got all the security. The Secret Service must have been driving him bananas because I mean, so it's
How do you even get? I mean, if you ever been to Madison Square Garden or the Central Station there, it's a nightmare.
yeah.
From a security perspective?
Yeah.
It's a nightmare just from a one-person perspective to get in and out of there into the location that you're supposed to be.
With the subways
how do you get all of that security and create a security bubble that is moving with the president?
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane.
Yeah. I firmly believe if somebody wanted to, and they had it, like if it was organized, they would be able to do it. I mean, you think about it, if each one of us carried a piece of a weapon and you had 30 people in the crowd, you assembled that in there, you'd be able to. I mean, there's so many ways.
Yeah, you're passing pieces around. I mean, we're all, firearms folks. We all know how to break down something and break it down to the nth degree. Right,
but the barrel.
Like it
out of plastic.
Yeah.
Really? So.
Well, you can even do that.
Maybe
right?
For one use.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah. So there's a printable plastic firearm out there that is a double barrel, and the only thing metal about the thing is the firing pin and the actual round that you throw in there.
Yeah.
So it's definitely doable.
Yeah.
But
well, let's hope we don't have to have that conversation.
No.
Because I think it's almost time for us.
They've tried what 3 times?
Yeah,
up to 3 times. There's at least 2 confirmed,
that we know
and then
about.
the third one, we're not sure if that guy was set up or that was a weird one, and where he was.
We never heard anything else about it. Isn't it
never
funny
heard
how
anything
memory
about
holes
him.
happen in this country now? I still want to know what was going on with that Las Vegas shooter. That was like one of the biggest
remember
things
that.
And all of a sudden it just got memory hole.
Was that 2017 or 2000 or even
I mean,
earlier?
the guy shot, 50 people? I mean,
Yeah.
it was huge.
From the
The
hotel
bump
room
stocks,
up above.
He was stacked with weapons. We never heard another peep.
Yeah, we still don't know what his motive was.
We don't know
He had
anything.
been buying those things for quite some time.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So, as we've talked, the election is next week. It's next Tuesday. Hopefully, we have some really good news for you on next Wednesday's show.
Yeah.
My personal prediction is we won't. We will actually be stalled for weeks under litigation.
Yeah.
I've pointed to the 2000 election, which was the first.
Chads.
Which was the first contested presidential race in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And they didn't settle that until mid-December. Like, we almost went to Christmas without knowing who our next president was going to be.
That was their
and
first.
I feel like it's going to be at least that severe this time around.
It probably will, and that's where we got the slogan "Selected, not elected." That was the Democrats' big thing, and they'll be ready for it.
Well, Rutherford B. Hayes went through the same thing.
Yeah.
And we survived it, so we'll get our way through it. But
Well,
it's going to be
Ike,
frustrating.
didn't he? Who was it? Who they printed?
He actually lost.
Yeah,
and
but he
then
won.
In the back rooms of Congress, he won. So.
Yeah. So, all right. So, get out and vote next Tuesday, and we will see you next
Vote
Wednesday.
red.
There you go.